Now, this is me in a nutshell. Help! I'm in a nutshell! How did I get into this nutshell? Look at the size of this bloody great big nutshell. What sort of shell has a nut like this? I mean, it's just crazy.
Good day. This is Al Weissman welcoming you to another edition of In a Nutshell. We have an interesting show lined up for you today that I hope you'll find entertaining and fun as well as informative. Last week, Jack Jacobs of Highland Park, Illinois, shared some memories of World War II with us. Jack is a World War II veteran who was a flight instructor for the Navy and flew around 1,500 missions in the Far East, many involving combat. His descriptions were visceral and moving. You can watch a million movies about World War II and not feel the seat-of-the-pants emotion shared by Jack, which require the point of view of someone who actually rode in the pilot seat. So I just wanted to say thank you again, Jack Jacobs, sharing your experiences with us and for your essential service to our country. Really something. In today's nutshell, we're going to spend the first half hour of the show continuing with our veterans theme. We're going to visit with Al Zalent of Gurnee, Illinois. Al Zalent is also a veteran of World War II. He was a plane captain on a medium-sized aircraft carrier stationed in the Far East and has an interesting story to tell. Like Jack Jacobs, Al's war experiences were up close and personal and most profound for the portion of the war that was brought to him and brought to the carrier on which he was stationed. Al was to have appeared on In a Nutshell last week, but due to health reasons resulting in his hospitalization, our visit had to be postponed to this week. And so we got together on Tuesday, and I was able to visit with him at his home in Gurnee and record this interview. So check this out. You got into the Navy. How long did you work in your machinist apprenticeship as a civilian?
Well, from about a year, because I graduated from high school in June 42, and then I went in the Navy of September 1943. So it's about 9 months, I would say, and went through boot camp at Great Lakes for my 9 weeks, and then after that, I was home for a week's weekend or whatever it was, and then off to the West Coast. And first thing you know, I was at a base there and got my orders to go to Pearl Harbor to get my ship. I went off to the West Coast, which was a place called Shoemaker, just east of San Francisco.
And is that where you got your designation?
When I got out of Great Lakes, I was being an apprentice tool and die maker. They gave me a rating of a fireman first class, and when I had that rating till I went aboard ship.
All right, so then you went aboard ship. You got orders to go to Hawaii to go aboard ship, correct?
Correct.
And then did you retain the same rating while you were once you got aboard the ship?
Well, when I went aboard ship, they didn't have room for me down in as a machinist, a mate apprentice, so they put me up in the air department, and I was a talker for the landing signal officer, and I had I forget the amount of time that I had with him, but my petty officer that was in charge of me asked me if I wanted to be a plane captain. So he started training me to be a plane captain of an F-6F fighter. So then I was, instead of striking for machinist mate, I started striking for aviation machinist mate.
I see. So now, did you have to go back to A school for that, or did you learn whatever you needed to know aboard the ship?
I learned whatever I needed aboard ship.
So it was really like an apprenticeship.
It was like an apprenticeship, right?
So then you became a aviation machinist mate. Did you like that?
Oh, I loved it. In fact, to this day, I thank God that he looked over me at the point, because many of them machinist mates got killed when my ship was sunk. Yeah.
Oh, but you're saying the machinist mates because they were down below deck. They couldn't get out from underneath the thing.
Sure.
Oh, wow.
Well, so being on the flight deck, at least I was there when all the action, and it was exciting always, landing and taking off planes, seeing them land, and take off and land. Many planes didn't come back.
Wow, that must have been something. Okay, so you were an aviation machinist mate on what ship was that?
It was the USS Princeton CVL-23.
Is that a big ship or a small ship? Can you tell us something about the Princeton?
Well, the Princeton was a light converted cruiser. During the beginning of the war, when there was a number of our carriers were being sunk, the Navy took 9 cruisers and converted them to light carriers because they were capable of keeping up with the bigger carriers.
And how many guys were on board that ship, if you have any idea?
There was a crew of about 1,300 plus the air group, so altogether about 1,500 men.
Well, that's a pretty good sized ship. How many planes were on that ship?
I think we had about 25 fighters, and I think it was about 8 or 10 torpedo planes. Being a plane captain, we didn't do too much of the mechanical repairs. It was just make sure the plane. We had a yellow chick. We had to warm up the plane every morning, check out all the instruments, all the filters, and everything, and if we okayed the plane, it was okay for the pilots to fly.
All right. Did you work with the same airplane every day, or the same group of airplanes, or how did that work?
Yeah, we each had our own plane of service, but I've lost a couple planes when pilots went out to battle and they never came back. Mm-hmm.
Were you pretty close with some of these pilots?
No, we never did get too close with the pilots because they were more or less officers, and we were, just sailors, and so they didn't fraternize with us. Correct.
I see. Now, when you did go out to sea, I assume by virtue of the fact that you were at Hawaii that you went to the Far East. Can you tell us where it was in the Far East that you went?
Back in, I think it was in January. The first battle that we went through was at the Marshall Islands, which was in Eniwetok, Kwajalein, and Majuro.
What year was that? January of what year?
And that was of January of 1944. And then on January 29th, we had airstrikes in Woji, which is part of the Marshall Islands. And I believe we stayed there up through March or something. Mm-hmm.
March of 1944.
March of 1944.
Okay, and you were making sure that the planes were ready to go. The planes would come in. You'd make sure they were serviced properly, and they were always ready to go for the next battle. Yeah,
that's correct. Uh-huh.
It must have been pretty hairy out there. Can you tell us a little bit about what life was like out there?
Well, I tell you, at that time, what I remember of the Marshall Islands, that was mostly out to sea, and it wasn't too hairy at the time for us being aboard ship because the aircraft were covering the landings and all, while the Marines and the Army were invading the islands at the time.
I see. So how far away from the action? Actually, you were probably pretty far away from the action.
I would say we were real far, farther away.
I
don't know. I couldn't say 200-300 miles, maybe. Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. So did the war ever come to visit you on the ship?
Other battles, yes.
Well, tell us about it.
Yes. Well, there was one area we were. I think we were around islands of Truk, and all of a sudden we had general quarters about 2:30 in the morning, and everybody got all excited, and we all ran to our battle stations. And my battle station was on the flight deck, being by my airplane, and we got up there, and the Japanese aircraft were dropping these flares on, and there was Betties skirming along the top of the surface of the waters, and some ships, and then I think we got a little, I don't know, bang there. We felt a little concussion, but it was no heavy damage. But one thing that always bothered me was if we had got hit and get in the water at night, you'd never be found.
I see. So, but I know that you were at one point in time, the ship was under heavy attack, no?
Yes. Well, then there was another major battle that we went to, which was called the Turkey Shoot. And that was in June of 44. I think it was June 16th. And we, well, let me tell another story. Just before a battle, we knew we were going to be in a battle that day. So our captain, for some reason or other, he always gave us a nice turkey dinner for before battle. It seemed like make sure that we're fed well. But at this particular day that I can remember was we got general quarters while we were having our dinner, and when I got up to my battle station, I could see this Japanese plane just coming right at us, and our 40 millimeters got him. I thought for sure that we were going to get hit at that time, and I actually saw the red circle on the wing.
Oh my goodness!
When that's how close that plane was to us when he went in.
Are these kamikaze pilots at that time?
That I couldn't tell, but he was coming toward us. Yes.
So what happened?
Our gunners got him down.
Whoa!
Yes.
Well, that was fortunate.
That was, yes.
That scared the hell out of anybody.
Sure. And according to some of the books that I have, we have our squadron was Squadron VF-27, and our squadron alone shot 30 of them planes down that day.
Wow.
That was one of the major battles in the Pacific there at around called the Turkey Shoot. That was around the Carolina Islands.
I see. Okay.
Guam, Saipan.
But it seems now you sent me over a brochure that described. It was actually a magazine. Now you're involved with the association of former members of the crew on the Princeton, isn't that correct?
That's correct. We was a number of years before our members put together an association. So when I forget the exact year what it was when some of these former sailors formed this association. In our first reunion, we had I think about 45 of us that attend. This included spouses and all, but it was a very memorable gathering because we never saw each other for maybe it was about 30 years.
Oh my goodness!
Yes, and then we had 27 reunions after that, and I'm fortunate enough that I was the only person that made every reunion. I always look forward to them.
I bet.
Yes, got a phone call on yesterday on Veterans Day. One of my shipmates called me.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So now I saw a publication from your Princeton Association, and that publication had an article in there that talked about an instance where the Princeton was actually bombed heavily by the Japanese. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, it was October 20th, 1944, when we went to sea to the Philippines, and our squadrons were covering MacArthur's landings on the Philippines on October 20th. And 4 days later, I guess Admiral Halsey must have got word that the Japanese fleet was coming down from the north, and so we went to intercede them, and it was on October 24th at 9:38 a.m. in the morning when we were landing some of our fighter planes that we had sent out at a mission before that, and it was while we were landing our aircraft is when a Japanese aircraft, of which I think it was called a Judy, came and got in on the landing circle and dropped a 550-pound bomb right in the middle of our deck.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes. And
that's a pretty hefty bomb there. It must have had a pretty devastating effect on the ship.
Yes, it went down through 3 decks. It went down through the flight deck, the hangar deck, and then the third deck, which was where in fact, if I would have been in that compartment, I probably would have been killed, because that's where the bake shop was close by, and our quarters was right close to the bake shops.
Oh my goodness!
Yes, but I was fortunate. I was on a flight deck, and my plane just landed just before that, and I was standing on the wing helping my pilot get out of his cockpit when the Japanese dropped the bomb.
So now, this big 550-pound bomb is dropped on your ship. Did your pilot prepare the airplane to take off again, or what happened next?
No, it was already parked, and it was in no position for any plane to take off.
Well, what did happen next?
Well, the next thing it was after everybody was at shock. At least I was, and it wasn't much longer. The captain says all hands abandon ship, except the fire control and damage control and medics. And I saw one of my best buddies dive off on the starboard side, and I thought I'd never see him again. And I was so scared. I still have my life preserver. I was wearing it that day, and I went down to the bow of the ship, and then on where the hangar deck was, and kind of walked along the catwalk, which we call, and saw a line down in the water, and I was too scared to jump in the water. I went down the line and I was hoping to get to those ships that were close by, but the current was too strong, and I just kind of washed out to sea from there. I'll show you pictures.
How many feet above water was it from which you jumped?
I would say maybe about 20 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when you were in boot camp, as part of your boot camp, did you have to jump from a tower into a swimming pool to give you an idea of what it would be like to jump off of a ship?
Yes, we did.
Do you recall how high that tower was?
It must have been about 20 feet or more.
Because I remember when I was in boot camp, we had to jump off of a 32-footer.
Well, it could have been that, yes.
And you hold your...
If you went to Great Lakes, it's the same height.
No, I went to Memphis, but you put one hand on your crotch and one hand on your face to hold your nose, and you jumped. And that's what there was to it.
And you had to keep treading water, because the petty officers on deck there, you couldn't grab for a side. They make you keep treading water, too.
When I was in boot camp, there was this one poor soul who was deathly afraid, and he absolutely refused to jump off of this 32-foot tower. And that guy, they practically had him living on that tower after a while. He had to go there every day. That was his work assignment. That's what he had to do. And finally, I think he must have jumped off that tower 100 times before he got out of that boot camp. But they taught him, because if you can't jump off of a ship, you're dead. If the ship gets struck like your ship was struck and you can't jump into the water, what are you going to do? You're dead. At least you have a chance if you can jump into the water.
Right. And finally, after there was another sailor and myself, we just clung on to each other, and we were washed out to sea, and I was out there for 3.5 to 4 hours before I thought it was the end of my life, but we were finally picked up by a destroyer.
That's incredible. And all that time, so the only person you saw was that one guy that you found when you jumped into the water?
Yes, I did. And I never asked his name, and I don't remember what he looked like or anything. That's how scared we were.
But out of the 1,500 guys that were on the ship, what happened to the rest of the guys?
Well, there was different destroyers and a cruiser just picking up all these guys. Okay. And then there was whale boats out there. Some of them got on whale boats and lost some. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So were you assigned to a different ship after that?
No, I came back to the United States, and everyone got a 30-day survivor's leave plus traveling time. And then I was assigned to what they call a Carrier Aircraft Service Unit. It was in San Diego, but it was the Brownfield was the name of the place, and it was right on the border of Mexico and California.
I see. Well, let me ask you. Let me back up here for a second. So now you jumped off to Princeton, and you were in the water. The water, you kind of got swirled away from the Princeton. Whatever happened to the Princeton?
Well, the Princeton, they've been trying to save the Princeton with the Birmingham, and I think there was the Irwin, and then there was one terrific explosion, and the Birmingham got the brunt of that explosion, and they had more men killed on their ship than we did from this explosion. So then it was after that when the admirals decided it was a hindrance to save the ship, and then they ordered it to be torpedoed and sunk. And there's another story there about it was after us that were picked up by these destroyers. We were all in that small task force when they were firing the torpedoes. Well, the Irwin was the first ship to fire a torpedo, but it went out of control and started coming towards us destroyers, and I saw this torpedo coming right at us.
Oh my goodness!
And we all were just petrified with it and thought we were going to be killed or whatever again. But the captains got us all out of the path of that wild torpedo, and then finally I believe it was the Reno that put torpedoes into the Princeton to give it its final sinking.
So the Princeton was sunk. You were sent back to Hawaii, given a 30-day leave. Did you come back and visit your family during that 30-day period?
Oh, definitely. And I was there because, in fact, my parents didn't know whether I was dead or alive for 2 weeks because the news was released to the public back home before anybody was able to notify them at the time. And then we were each one was given a formal V letter at that time they called and sent just to let them know at least we were safe.
I bet your parents were pretty happy to see you when you came home.
Yes, they were. Yes, it was, and that's a time when I kind of re-met my wife too, because we kind of went to grammar school for a while, and then while I was during the war, our parents met, and I came back, and I didn't have no steady girlfriend, and this one girl that I was dating a little bit before I went in the Navy, just used to go roller skating and all. Well, her father just passed away, and she was in mourning, and she wasn't in no mood to go out on a date, so I understood and just went home, and then I called my present wife. She sent me a letter and a piece of fruitcake from that her aunt built, and I received this in Pearl Harbor, and I thought, well, I'm going to call her up and thank her, and then we dated ever since, and she came out to visit me while I was stationed in San Diego.
Don't you think it's about time you made her an honest woman and married the girl?
Well, before I let her go back home from San Diego, I asked her to marry me, and I says, I've got $300 in the pocket. If I take you home, I says, you can't come back with me. She said, well, I'll stay. We got married out there.
Al Weisman, in a nutshell, an amazing story, and I want to thank Al Zalent for taking the time and appearing with us, and in a nutshell, and sharing those experiences and recollections with us. That was quite a story. Guys like Al Zalent and Jack Jacobs are really what Veterans Day is all about. We should never fall into a state of complacency where we forget the incredible things that these guys did and the incredible hardship that these guys had to endure for our country. I know I don't think about it often enough, but since I've had the opportunity to hear these two gentlemen's stories, it has definitely given me pause to reflect We're going to take a break for a minute now. And when we return, we're going to listen to some music by regional entertainers mixed in with music by world-renowned entertainers. So don't touch that dial.